How's it going? It's good to see you guys.
How anxious were you to get back after how last season ended?
Eager, excited. I think obviously when you fall short like we did, the initial aftermath is tough. But the positive that comes from that is you dig a little deeper, reflect a little more, and it's been too long off season, but what I can say is we've gotten a lot better this off season in analyzing and reflecting on how we can be better. I've gotten better as a coach. My staff will be better. The club will be better, and that starts with certainly the roster, but it also it ends with myself and evaluating everything that can be better. So I found that process after the initial aftermath to be, very enlightening. And looking forward to a great season. I'm ready to turn the page on last year and ready to get going.
You guys have made some moves, obviously you made some signings today, but how close is the roster to complete? I know you guys have mentioned you would be signing a DP winger. And what's the timeline? Is that the only signing left, or are there others? And what's the timeline of maybe adding these final pieces?
Well, we had some initiatives, obviously, in our off-season, not just a reflection of, my processes and how the staff works and, the inner workings, but just purely the roster. We had some initiatives, and the initiatives were to add 2 or 3 starting caliber players, difference makers, that would be able to step in and, raise the level of our group. I was really honest about what I felt was wrong with the roster. And when I look at the injuries, that's a factor, but that can never be an excuse. You have to look at the depth. And one of our biggest initiatives was to increase in 2 or 3 positions the talent, but then also add in that player, you can call it 9 to 16, 9 to 18. We need to add more starting caliber depth, and then within those additions, get a little younger and add in some leadership. But I think by creating more starting caliber depth, that increases the competition and the hunger. And if some of those guys are leaders, that helps in the locker room. And if some of those guys are younger, that creates an energy and a hunger. And that was, always the goal of the off season. And so we're not done. Obviously, we still have a difference maker, starting caliber DP difference maker to add on the wing. Maybe a few more depth pieces, but we feel like we've accomplished a lot towards our initiative in adding the pieces that we wanted to add to make our roster better, to increase the competition, to cover ourselves for injuries, to add in some leadership, and to create some succession planning with younger players.
Just talk about the process of bringing Dayron back, and when did that start, and how that all unfolded.
Yeah, obviously, well, I'll tell you, it started with him wanting to come back, and that was big for me. He wanted to come back, and I know what Dayron can do on the field, and with him wanting to come back, and with us needing what he could bring on the field, and with the way his contract was set up, it being pretty easy to bring him back, you put those together, it didn't take me long to say, yeah, let's do it. And in discussions with Gavin and Merritt, and in discussions with Dayron, I just felt like it would be a good move to make to bring him back, and he seems very hungry to come back and fully invest in the team, and we know what he can do on the pitch, and we have a need for what he can bring on the pitch.
Does him coming back mean that, I know you
No, I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't rule that out. I wouldn't rule it in either. You know, I can't really comment on Rodney because he's under contract. But you know, I wouldn't, again, rule it out or in.
Darlington Nagby, obviously the rumors were out there that there was some talk with Celtic. How close was he maybe to leaving, or was that overblown?
I don't know if it was close or overblown. You know, I think it is what it is. You know, players have opportunities. It happens all the time. We were open, like we will be on every player, to listen. But it has to make sense from a financial standpoint. You know, it has to make sense for us. It has to make sense for Darlington. And so it definitely wasn't close enough. But, you know, it got to the point where we were listening, and it got to the point where we had to, you know, have discussions. But ultimately, it never got close enough to do the deal. And that's not just from our standpoint. That's from the player's standpoint, our standpoint, everybody. So at the end of the day, when everything was on the table and they made their offer as far as transfer fee and their offer as far as wages, we were all in agreement that it wasn't the right thing to do.